What's up, moviegoers? Welcome to the Marchio podcast. I'm your host, Anthony. On today's episode, I'm talking about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. It's the sequel to the 1974 original cult hit, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And this movie, part 2, was released 12 years later. So there's a big time jump. And this movie is categorized as a black comedy slasher film. Now, when I say black comedy, before anything like horror or slasher, basically, black comedy means dark humor or dark comedy that is thrown into a horror film to liven up the violence and the tension by putting in jokes and sexual innuendos to make things, less scary and less violent. So that's what black comedy means, if you didn't know. Now, the plot of the movie follows a radio host victimized and captured by Leatherface and his cannibalistic family while a former Texas Marshal hunts them down. Now, the Texas Marshal is played by Dennis Hopper. Yes, Dennis Hopper is in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2, and his character is crazy and fun to see in this movie. And you could say that Part 2 is more so of a comedy than it is a horror slasher. The interesting thing about this movie is that Bill Moseley plays the character of Chop Top Sawyer. Now, Bill Moseley's character, Chop Top, is one of the film's villains and the main source of its dark humor. He is the member of the cannibalistic Sawyer family, and his name is not actually revealed in the film. He is deranged and a sadistic individual, and gleefully murders people when given the chance, possessing a hippie-like mentality and a view on life. Through his remarks about flashbacks and napalm suggestion that say that he could be a Vietnam veteran. Chop Top adorns himself in a variety of multicolored and tattered clothing and claims that music is his life. So Bill Moseley in this movie, along with Dennis Hopper and certain other characters, really definitely changed things of how we saw the first movie. This movie is more fun. This movie is more entertaining. And the director, Tobe Hooper, does return to direct this sequel. And he was the original director for the first movie. There were a lot of positive and negative aspects of this movie. A lot of positive and negative critiques, too. And originally, Tobe Hooper was only going to produce the film, but he could not find a director for the film's budget, which he could afford. So he decided to direct it himself. So Gunnar Hansen, who played the original Leatherface in the first movie, was approached to reprise his role, but he claimed to have been offered a scale plus 10%, with 10% going to his agent. So if you hear that in Hollywood or any other movie that the actor or actress got plus 10%, meaning that the other half or 10% goes to their agent. So basically what happened was that when he replied that he had no agent, they offered a scale without the additional 10%, and Hansen found the offer too low. So Hansen didn't want to come back as Leatherface. Basically how Bill Moseley got the part was that he created a short parody film called The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where he played a small role as the hitchhiker, and showed it to a screenwriter who was able to show it to Tobe Hooper. Hooper loved it and kept Moseley in mind for a part should he ever need to make a sequel. When the time came to cast Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, Moseley was contacted for the role of Chop Top, the hitchhiker's twin brother. The movie was released on August 22nd, 1986, has a running time of 101 minutes. The budget was $4.5 million, and it grossed $8 million at the box office in the United States. Now, during its theatrical release, the film grossed, like I said, $8 million, and the sequel received a mixed reaction from critics and audiences alike. The director Tobe Hooper decided to focus on its dark humor and believed this was in the first film, but was unacknowledged because of the dark, gritty content that the first film had. Now, let me just say that I think Tobe Hooper is wrong on that part because the first one did not have any dark humor at all. But since then, since the mixed reaction Part 2 has gained more so of a cult following than the first movie. And if you ever see the movie poster for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, it's basically parodying and copying the poster for The Breakfast Club, which is directed by, John Hughes and written by John Hughes. So it's funny to see a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie making fun of a high-hit cultural movie like The Breakfast Club, which is great. So if you put those two posters side by side, then you'll definitely know what I'm talking about. There are some scenes in this movie that are just weird, more so weird than the first movie, but this works a lot because of the humor that is into it. And Bill Moseley as Chop Top definitely makes this movie work. You can tell Chop Top is, I want to say, different in a way. It's different. If you ever saw a person like that in real life, then you know that some kind of aspect is wrong with them deep inside. They just don't know how to express it. But the way Chop Top expresses certain things is just weird in a way, but it works. It works in a weird way. Now, several scenes in the movie were deleted by director Tobe Hooper due to pacing issues and is mentioned on the 2000 documentary The Texas Chainsaw: The Shocking Truth. One lengthy scene was cut from the film that involves the Sawyer clan heading out at night to collect prime meat for their chili by slaughtering movie patrons and a group of rowdy rioting fans. The deleted slaughtering scene features several elaborate Tom Savini special effects. So Tom Savini definitely had his hand in this with the special effects. And during the 70s and 80s, he was a prominent role in makeup effects in Hollywood, and he still is today. Now, after it was submitted to the Motion Picture Association of America, the MPAA, in the United States, the movie received an X rating, prompting the filmmakers to release it as unrated. However, TV previews, theatrical trailers, and even posters for the film displayed the written statement, "Due to the nature of this film, no one under 17 will be admitted." So once again, the Tobe Hooper, going out of it and doing his own thing in a way worked with this movie because it had that grittiness and feel. This sequel, however, had that look and feel of being a Hollywood movie, unlike the first movie, which had that student filmmaker aspect, that grittiness because of the Eclair NPR 16mm camera that they used for the first movie. This was one of those movies where it had the anticipation of horror, but it didn't have that anticipation that you wanted because of all the dark humor that was thrown into it to level out the anticipation of what you wanted from the horror aspect of this movie. The movie's not a horror movie, even though some say, slasher and horror are the same thing. It's actually not, in my opinion. They're two different entities, they're two different subjects, and they're two different genres. And what the filmmakers were able to do with this movie was really good, and I enjoyed it. But I didn't enjoy it as much as I did the first one. Like I said, the first one had a good look and feel to it, and this one was more so, basically if they called it the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2 Chop Top, that's what this movie basically is. Other than that, it's not. And the tagline for this movie is, "After a decade of silence, the buzz is back." So it's a play on words, it's fun, and I feel like it was too far of a length to release one movie, the first one, and then the sequel 12 years later is really, really long. I mean, if they released this at the time where at the peak between, let's say, 1978 and 1981 when Halloween and the first Friday the 13th movie was coming out, then maybe this could have had a better following. But waiting close to 12 years to release a sequel, I would have definitely not have done that. But they did do that, and this movie gained a huge popularity on home video when it was released. So, hey, they made their money, they did their thing, and this is a cult following of a movie. So let me know in the comment section below what you think of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2, and do you like it for its slasher look, the feel of it, the anticipation of the horror that you want, or do you like the dark humor, the black comedy of it that it has in it? And do you think Chop Top is the one that makes this movie? And do you think that we needed more Leatherface in this movie? Let me know in the comment section below to the questions that I just asked. And be sure you tune into the next episode of the Marchio podcast where I talk about Leatherface, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. And be sure you click that subscribe button and hit that notification bell for new videos and new podcast episodes on the Marchio Productions YouTube page. And follow Marchio Productions on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And follow me, Anthony, your host, on Instagram and Twitter at misterfilmstock. And follow the Marchio Podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I'll leave a link to all the social media accounts in the description box below. You can check it out and follow along. Alright, everyone, that does it for today's episode. I'm your host, Anthony. Thanks for tuning in.